Good evening and welcome to Flat Earth United. Joining me this evening is Anthony Riley. How you doing, Anthony?
Sorry, I was expecting a longer intro than that. I was just going to open up the chat. I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well indeed. No complaints. You have had what I would call a not insignificant victory yesterday. Tell us all about it.
What I want to do is I just want to find where Nathan Oakley's channel is so I can open up the chat and see what responses I get. Because
don't worry about those peasants in the chat. You've got me here to chat to. Tell me all about your Parallax and your crow's nests and your Lake Pontchartrain. Tell me all about it. It's fantastic stuff. Don't worry about the chat.
All right, Dell Beyond the Imaginary Curve has been going on and on about how water does not curve, it does not conform to the shape of the exterior of a shape or whatever his rhetoric is. We all know that. There we go. I'm sorted. And really, out of nowhere, this guy's appeared called Soundly. Now, kind of like nearly 2 months ago, I did a video about Pontchartrain because I saw what he claimed was the curve of the Earth. And really, my first comment on his first video kind of stands true. So we live on a basketball, because Soundly's managed to find a significant curve at kind of like 18 miles. And when I first saw it, I was like, what? This makes no sense. I've got mileage at 30 miles and I'm seeing no curve. And I've got some dude over in the US somewhere that's claiming that we see the curvature of the Earth at 18. So I did a quick debunk video like 2 months ago. And you really can go back in my videos and you can check it. It's there. And it really shows that Soundly at that point was, well, gone in my eyes. I mean, at that point, I just did the video and I said, this isn't the curve. If it was the curve, it's too much. And on that basis, I can dismiss it in addition to my own evidence of, I mean, I've gone on and on and on about Blackpool Tower at 30 miles, but it is true. Blackpool Tower at 30 miles does show either very little curve or no curve whatsoever. So I was quite happy to dismiss Soundly at that point 2 months ago. Now, since then, I've been dealing with the likes of Mick West over at Metabunk Curve Calculator. I just need to shut this door. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. Story so far is always good to have with the Blackpool Tower and the Mick West stuff. So
yeah, I mean, Mick West, I mean, he was what my focus was after I did the original Soundly video 2 months ago. So for at least 2 months, it got that repetitive that Issa said to me, dude, you need to find another topic, man, because I'm fucking bored of it. And I was like, do you know what? That's a fair shout. But then Soundly came along and he was still there. And I thought Soundly had gone. I didn't realize Soundly was still on the scene. I hadn't noticed anything from him because, let's be honest, I mean, once you've dealt with something, you kind of move on from it. But there were ballers that were actually citing Soundly as evidence of curved water. And I was like, what? Soundly? Curved water? Now, if you go back to basics on the flat earth argument, the flat earth argument is Rowbotham did the Bedford Levels experiment and he found no curvature at 6 miles worth of water. So that's essentially the beginning. That's the building blocks for flat earth. Now, whether you accept that it was Dubé or whether you accept it was Jeranism, it goes back to ultimately Rowbotham at the Bedford Levels. And I generally accept that to be true, unless we find evidence to the contrary. And now we've got Soundly claiming, not so much that we've got Soundly, but we've got ball earthers that are citing him as the proof of the curved water. And I know damn well that there's no curved water at 30 miles. And I'm like, why are these guys believing that there's curved water at 18 miles, and they're dismissing my own evidence at 30? It made no sense. So I revisited it. IPS, there's a bit of a lull. I think we've had a breakdown in communication with IPS. I think Mick West has forgotten stuff, or I've broke down in communications. So it gave me an opportunity to reconsider Soundly. And I got an email from a guy that I'd never met before. And the guy his name's Nummy Num. And I'll be honest with you, he deserves the credit more than me. He contacted me and said, listen, I've seen you in Mick West. I want you to look at this evidence and tell me what you think. And it was essentially the basics of the Pontchartrain evidence being not correct. But I'd never met this guy. So I was thinking, well, I need to be careful here because this could be a trap. And I looked on Nummy Num's page. There was some content there. He wasn't like a one subscriber. He wasn't a troll. I'm not quite sure about this new guy, but I'm prepared to try to see. I mean, I don't know anything about CGI. I don't know anything about evidence manipulation in terms of photographs or videos. I mean, I know that 9/11 wasn't the way, it didn't go down the way we were told, but I also know that I couldn't be any kind of authority whatsoever with computer generated interference or computer generated graphics or anything like that. So I've got to be careful here, because this is like new territory to me. My mantra is that they can't prove curve, they can't prove axial rotation, they cannot prove gravity. I'm now going to add a fourth one to that, which is the Soundly can't prove parallax, because Soundly really cannot. He's done something that's bad.
Okay,
so
well,
this guy come across and he
let's
said,
take a
"Look,
step back.
this is
There's going to potentially going to be people who are watching that go, "What's the Pontchartrain evidence? What is it exactly?" So, can you detail what it is, or have you got a picture maybe that you can show us?
That means screen share, right?
Yeah, just stick something up if you can.
I can do it so that it doesn't get hidden.
Have you got something to hand?
Yeah. Let me. If I share my screen now and then you present,
yeah, no worries.
I'll be able to. I'll go straight to Soundly's. And obviously, I'm conscious of the fair use rules, but essentially, if it's for educational purposes, and this is educational purposes, absolutely. But I mean, this is one example. I mean, Soundly's got that much out there that you can. It's a devil's delight. You can go and pick anything you wish. But this is one example of a video that Soundly produced or created or whatever you want to call it. He put on YouTube, and I looked at this and I just thought, that doesn't look fucking real. I mean, that was my gut reaction. That didn't look real. Because I mean, forget about the curve. I mean, the composition of the image that we're looking at, it looks like Walt Disney's made it, because the water looks real, but these things that they call pylons here just don't look real. So I'd kind of looked at the Pontchartrain stuff, and I thought, well, I'm happy that that's not real. But I've got nothing to suggest that there's anything foul play here. But again, this is another video of Soundly's. But again, I look at this and I think that's not how the P900 records anything. I mean, this looks like there's been color enhancement. There's been some kind of post-production stuff on this. And I really don't know what it is, but I wasn't really prepared to get into it, other than I dismissed it as, well, I've got evidence at 30 miles and he's claiming this at 18 miles and it's inconsistent. But I'd been approached by this guy that I'd never met before. And it was essentially on, let me find the actual one it was. I think it was this one. This was essentially the video that we were looking at. Now, I mean, look at this. I mean, what's going on? I mean, the water looks real, other than it's very, very blue, and generally water's generally grey, like a murky, greeny grey colour. But the pylons don't look real. They look like they've been put on top. And this guy had contacted me. His name's Nummy Num. And he said, look, I've got evidence that shows that Soundly is actually faking stuff. And I was like, show me. Now, he showed it me, and I was really a little bit uncertain, because like I say, it's nothing to do. I don't have any expertise in it whatsoever. But this was the video that he picked on. Now, I've heard Soundly describing this particular video, and I'll slow it down so that I've got a bit more time to talk in it. But Soundly has referred to this video as, quote, the only one you really need to see. I mean, he's obviously showing the curve of the Earth. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, look at the curve. It's ridiculous. But he showed this video and he cited this, and his words were, this is really the only thing you need to see. Now, we'd looked at this video and we were looking at it, and it just looks fake. There's no other word to describe it, as it just looks fake, but nobody can put the finger on why. Now, like I say, 2 months ago, I cited this. I kind of debunked him in my own way, and that was, for me, that was the moment of dismissal. And I didn't reconsider it for another 2 months. But what's really interesting about this video is, where is Soundly when he's recording this? Because unless he's on a magic carpet and he's literally flying by the front of these pylons, he's got to be in a really weird vantage point to be able to get this image in the first place.
Well, this is something you spoke to me about. So you said that originally you said that you didn't even think the location existed, but then you you pursued that and then found that it did. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, let me put it to you this way. I'll quickly bring up Google Earth and I'll bring up Pontchartrain. Now, I mean, most people will probably have done this. And if you have done all this, you'll just have to excuse me for a minute. Pontchartrain. Ooh. I need to put the word lake. Lake Pontchartrain. It's a really unusual word as well, actually, to be honest. But I mean, if you look at Pontchartrain on, I mean, look at the way that this is presented on Google Maps. There's these columns of lines, rows, and for whatever reason, this something weird's going on here, because this, why would it look like this when virtually all of the other lakes in America don't have this representation by Google? So, I mean, you make of this whatever you will. I don't know why they do this, but I do notice that around the edges here, it doesn't look as though it looks to me like they're masking something. Now, there appears to be a runway here. Now, that would make sense if they're going to mask it off, but they'd normally mask off the runway if it's military, not the lake itself. And now, when I first looked at this Lake Pontchartrain, I was like, what? So I did my own little mini debunk video, and I wasn't that bothered about it. But then what I noticed was Dr. Zach brought out a video, and he based his videos based on the lines that run east to west. Now, they were wrong. Now, part of Zach's video was credible in terms of the points it made out, but he had based them on the wrong set of power lines. So he kind of like, it made his video void in one sense. And the videos that Soundly's got recorded are from the road that runs down here, and it runs right the way up to, like, it runs in almost north to south direction along this line. And if you really zoom in, you can actually see them. They're not easy to pick out, but the way you need to find it is you need to find the road that cuts across. There we go. There's the bend. You need to find the road that cuts across. You need the bend, and then you can see the pylons that cut through. 2 or 3 pylons in, they get to a junction, and then the pylons go off in pretty much a north. It's like a northeasterly direction, but I'm happy to call it north, because, and then you kind of lose sight of them because of this masking that they put over the top of it. So I was like, whoa, that's really weird. But I didn't think too much of it because I thought, well, Google Earth they do manipulate stuff, and it must be for military reasons or whatever. But when you realize that now Soundly is producing this kind of footage, and this he cites this video as, quote, pretty much the only one you need. Well, if you go with that as his own citation, which is pretty much the only one you need, you can pretty much use this video as a basis for which you can apply critique, which is what me and Nummy Num did. And Nummy Num said, like, there's problems with this. And there were other problems in all of his other videos. And the issue became, it wasn't a case of which video should we choose. They're all the same. They all look fundamentally the same. So it was a case of, well, let's just pick on one video that we can pull apart, and with the guise of critiquing it, because it just doesn't look real. It looks generated in some way. So, I mean, look at it. Do these pylons look real, or does it look like we're looking at a movie scene from America?
Yeah, and when you described it as living on a basketball, by virtue of what it's depicting, I kind of know what you mean now. It's it's an outrageous curve, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, don't forget, I'm basing this all on my own observations of Blackpool Tower at 30 miles, and I'm not seeing anything like this. And he's coming up with this curve that looks like we live on a basketball. And it really is that bad. I mean, he accepts it, and the ballers all accept it. But I looked at that and just instantly dismissed it because it's disproportionately curved. Now, I ignored it for ages. But then I saw Kara from Earth Discussions 2.0 did a CAD illustration of what the Earth should look like if these pylons were on a ball, and basically it matched perfectly, which made me ask the question, well, what came first? Was it the CAD design, or was it Soundly's design? Because it's that bad. This curve is ridiculous. So me and Nummy Num, we did sat and talk about it, and we were like, where do we start with this? I mean, what do we do with this other than it just looks fake? And we put a hangout out last week, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and we put some points in it just to see what the feedback would be if we made some minor points, because we knew that there was more to go at, but we didn't know where we were really looking. So we did a hangout, and we put some of the minor points out, and GeoStreber from Germany came online on live on the Hangout, and he said, no, this is the situation. You can see this, and therefore it's right, and you're wrong, and you are idiots. So I was hosting, and I said, okay, we'll move on because there's more things to discuss. But Nummy said, no, I'm not prepared to move on. He said, I want to come back to this later on. He said, because I believe he's wrong. And I said, okay, well, we'll come back to it. So we had a couple of days off where we reconsidered our thoughts. And essentially, me and Nummy basically ran through the criticisms. And when we got to this particular video, Nummy said to me, he said, look, there's something seriously wrong with this video. I said, do you mean the curve? And he says, no. He said, look at the way the pylons are conformed, the conformation of the actual pylons themselves. And I said, right. He said, there's parallax missing. And I said, really? Where? Now, the issue is the parallax comes from these vertical stanchions that are here. Now, bear in mind that Soundly, the guy that made these videos, is supposed to have recorded this, according to his videos, in his car on a homemade mount. And it was basically a tripod with his P900 on it. And it was on a piece of board. And it was like bungee corded to the passenger seat of his car. That's the way he's described it. But I know full well, and you have to look at where these pylons are in relation to the road. They are miles away. For you to be able to get this, you've got to zoom in a lot. Now, look at how smooth the actual footage is. There's basically nothing. There is no serious vibrations or road. I mean,
well, you
seriously.
say that. I mean, I noticed when you did the last pass that it looked, and I'm sure this got mentioned on your Hangout as well, like the effect that YouTube has when you put stabilization after rendering on YouTube. So once you've uploaded the video, you can then get YouTube to stabilize the video, and it does all sorts of weird things. I think it'll do it now. I think it's on this pass. The lines start to go a bit wavy on the pylons.
Which would be about there.
Yeah, you've got it.
Now, these wavy lines come into it. Now, I'll come to the wavy lines in a sec. The issue at this point is the parallax. Now, Nummy said to me, there's no parallax. And I was like, what are you talking about? Look at the pylons in the background. They clearly parallax. They clearly go from, you can see the parallax. The pylons are parallaxing right now. The pylons in the foreground are moving quicker than the pylons in the background, and we're getting parallax. And he said, no, look at the photo in the foreground. He said, look at the pylon in the foreground. And his point was that these two stanchions that are vertical are not parallaxing consistently with all the other pylons. And I said, run that by me again. And he said, basically, these stanchions here should overlap. So I was like, okay, let's reconsider it. So as you can see the vertical stanchions appear now, and you can see the closest thing to us, they have to parallax. They can't not parallax. Now, Nummy said to me, he said, what do you think of that? And I looked at it and I thought, you're absolutely right. Why is there no parallax on the two front pylon struts? They should be there, and they should be parallaxing, because the rest of the pylons behind them are doing the exact same thing. So I was like, hang on a sec. This is direct black and white evidence that something's fouling, something's going on here. I said, let's be absolutely clear that we get this right. Because if we say that there's no parallax and we're wrong in that there shouldn't be any parallax for whatever weird reason, we're going to look like idiots. I said, but if you're right and there should be parallax, this is really bad, because this proves black and white without any negotiations or discussions that this is fake. So we spent about an hour trying to work out, why is there no parallax? And we concluded that they're going to come back with, it's that far away that the degrees of momentum that you are getting from the car isn't enough to create parallax. That was what we thought that they would come back with. And obviously they did come back with that, but we'd preempted that. And essentially the parallax that we're talking about that they describe shouldn't be there can be demonstrated by my own video, which we preempted. And I'll bring it up really quickly. Hang on, bear with me. P900 DCIM. And I did this video essentially because we knew that they were going to come back with it. Let's make sure that the sound's off. Now, this is my dining room, and I've got 3 bottles on the table, which represent the stanchions on the pylon. We've got the 2 front stanchions on the first pylon, and then whatever reference point behind it you pick, which can be any part of any of the pylons. And essentially, once you zoom in, which is what I try and do here, I must have had the camera on the wrong mode. It doesn't matter. You can see that this is replicating Soundly from the road. with himself zoomed in. Now, when you zoom right in on something, forget about the focus for a minute. It doesn't matter. I was sat on the floor, cross-legged, with a little tripod, with the camera attached to it, just like Soundly. I'd zoomed in heavily on the subject matter, which would be the pylons, and these two bottles represent the stanchions. I only move the camera tripod by about 1.5 feet. Very, very little movement. And as I move it, you can see what really happens. We get parallax. So imagine that the front bottle that says happy on it, and the bottle behind it is the two stanchions of the pyramid, of the pylon we've just been looking at. You can see parallax clearly from zoomed in from a distance, which is what I was trying to show. So we'd agreed, me and Nummy, we'd agreed that we'd run with it and see what happens. But we were also aware that if this was to be proven to be correct, this would then dismiss his evidence as fake. Now, the problem with that is you've got to make the assertion that this is fake. Now, if you're making a dishonest assertion, you've got to prove that the guy is faking it. You can't just say it's fake and he's lying because derp. You've got to say that it's fake and I can prove it. Because the minute you accuse somebody of lying or dishonesty in some way, you've got to prove that that guy has got an intention to deceive. Now, the only point that you can prove, you have to prove that it's fake. Because the only point that you can conclude from fake evidence is that it's there to deceive. But for the last month, I've been going on about flat earthers accusing people of lying and being dishonest. And I'm now finding myself that I've just accused Mick West of being dishonest. I've just accused Soundly of being dishonest. And I'm now doing the one thing that I've been criticizing flat earthers for using flippantly, which is the dishonor of lying, dishonesty, fraud. And I'm doing the exact same thing. So we were at a point where we were like, well, should we really do this? Or is there another explanation? Because it might be that we get this wrong. But we both agreed that no, Soundly is doing something wrong because that pylon should parallax exactly the way that this footage shows. So we put it out there after GeoStreamer had criticized, and we were quite confident that that parallax should be present in the pylon. I mean, don't forget, this is only my kitchen, and it's not really using the zoom properly on my P900 because I'm so close. But I'm at like 60%, 70% zoom here, and all I'm showing is the parallax based on 1 foot worth of movement, maybe 1.5 foot. So it's comparable to what Soundly did. And we can clearly see that parallax plays a role. It's there. It's not fictitious. It's not like Coriolis, a fictitious force. It is there. Soundly's footage has got to be subject to it, and it's not. So now we were like, okay, let's put it out there and see what happens. But I've got to be careful, because if I get this wrong and there's an explanation for it that I've not seen, I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm going to have to delete the videos. I'm going to have to apologize. And I'll probably lose a lot of credibility, but it's based on the evidence that Soundly gave us. And you can clearly see when we zoom out, it still parallaxes. I'm only moving by 1 foot. So the parallax is there. So that pylon has to parallax, and there's no reason for it not to. Now, you messaged me the other day and said, do you want to come on the chat? And I was like, sure. But can we wait a day or two to see what these debunks will be? Because I may be wrong here. I may have got this wrong. And I waited 24 hours.
I can only repeat the sentiments that I had when we spoke, which is to say, why are you second guessing yourself? And you've already kind of preempted this by saying 2 months ago you looked at this and went, no. And then wrote it off. You've come back to it now because Mick Westing's on a hiatus with IPS. But it's nice to do a thorough debunking. I don't know why you're second guessing yourself, in other words.
Well, because I mean, it's not because I'm I'm no expert on physics. I don't profess to be a physicist. I am a flat earther. I'm not blessed with like a brain. I'm blessed with like a third of a brain by ballers. I can make mistakes. I do make mistakes. And essentially, I'm making the biggest accusation that anybody can make, which is you're frauding the evidence and it is completely fake. Now, to do that, you've got to be right. You can't make that assertion. You can't call somebody a liar without being able to prove that they were trying to deceive. And I've gone on about it for the last month, and I've done it twice. I've done it against Mick West, and I've done it now against Soundly, and it's wrong. We shouldn't really do it. But we flat earthers that are calling out ball earthers for evidence that's inconsistent with that which we know to be true. If you're going to make that claim that somebody's being dishonest, you've got to be right. So Nathan, do you want to? I think you're sharing.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
All right, okay. I think you're on present to everybody. I might be wrong, but maybe not.
It's just on so that when either of us talks, it flicks over to us. Obviously, since you've stopped sharing, that is. So.
But I absolutely thought that if I get this wrong, that's me gone, because it's such the biggest allegation you can make that you've got to be right. Now, I didn't go into this lightly. I didn't go into this thinking flippantly. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I've debunked a few people now, and each debunk seems to gain in magnitude. You've got to be right. And for the last month, I've been saying, guys, look, we shouldn't be calling people liars, because it's wrong. We can't prove that they're trying to deceive. But on this one occasion, on the Midwest one, me and Nummy had been looking at it. We were looking at it and we were like, what is the explanation for this other than fraud? And we tried for the day before, we tried and tried and tried. We couldn't see anything other than fraud. And I was like, shit, should we do this or should we not? So in the end, we decided we would run with it and we would see what happens. And I promise you, the shitstorm that happened last night was just, I don't know where were you last night? Were you around?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing unfold.
I left my chat because I wanted it stopped, because once I'd made the concise points that I wanted to make, I stopped it. I went into Jamie Brown's chat, and in that chat, we were talking about it. And literally, Jamie fired it up, and he's just started using OBS, and he'd shared the link publicly, thinking that he couldn't get sniped. And obviously, that turns out not to be true. You can get sniped on OBS unless Jamie's doing something wrong. But we tried to get it going 3 or 4 times, got sniped each time, but eventually we got it going. And there were trolls, honestly, there was like 4 or 5 of them. And you know who they are. They were literally circling like that. And they were waiting for that link. But when I got in chat, I did not realize that Ireland Von Vicious, I think that's his name, he was there to try and debunk me, because he'd watched my hangout with Nummy and he'd seen what was said. And he wanted to challenge me, but I didn't know that that's why he was there. I thought I'd gone into like an ally threat situation, but he was there to try and debunk me. And he went through it, and Pete said to him, "What's the call on it?" And his words were, "He's right. The guy's soundly's done something wrong. He's rendered something in some way. He's shown it wrong. There is no parallax. Tony is right, but the reality is there's more wrong with this." And Ireland showed that there was other things wrong with it too. And essentially, I mean, Soundly is discredited. I mean, he claims that there wasn't a discreditation, but there really was. He was shown to be dishonest. He was shown to be falsifying evidence that ballers now rely on to be the curve of the water. He was shown to be wrong. Now, I released a video today. I uploaded a video, and it was about 31 minutes long, which is quite a long video, but it's 31 minutes where Soundly destroys himself. It shows the key points that were made in the hangout. It shows Soundly's rebuttal. It shows the hangout in Jamie Brown's chat where people were analysing what I'd said and critiquing what I'd said, particularly Ireland, who's neither ball or flat. He's just generally a skeptic. And he basically said, you are right. Soundly has faked this in some way. How? Don't necessarily know, but we know that the evidence does not match the reality in which we live. And he said, no, you're right. He said, I owe you an apology. So on the one hand,
what had Ireland Von Vicious actually done? What was his... Because I came in towards the end when he was basically saying, you're right, I've come along to try and debunk you, and I failed miserably. I've actually gone on to confirm precisely what you have shown. So it was a bit of a moment, but I didn't actually see the preamble to that. So what was the work that he'd actually done to...
I honestly don't know what the preamble was. I just know that when I went into Jamie's chat, I believed I was going in with fellow flat earthers, and it turned out that Ireland had been sent in there by somebody, and I think it was Pete, but I don't think he did it for a bad reason. I think Pete did it because he wanted to critique me, and I believe that all flat earthers should be critiqued. I know you've had issues with people criticizing you for critiquing them, but the reality is that all flat earthers should be critiquing each other, because when you make claims that are based on facts, and you've got to have them facts right. You've got to have your evidence right. Otherwise, you're going to look like an idiot, and you have to correct the position. Now, Ireland Von Vicious had gone in there on whose authority, I don't quite know, but he'd gone in there to challenge me because he'd seen the hangout, he'd seen the points, and he wanted to challenge them. But by having the one-to-one dialect, you can ask me questions one-to-one, and I get put on the spot. Now, he only asked me the one question, and he went to look at it and critique it. And he came back with, do you know what? I actually thought that you were wrong at the start, and I was brought in to challenge you, but you are actually right. So Soundly has done something fake. Exactly what, we don't know, but if we can prove that it's fake, then we know that we discredit Soundly, and he can no longer be a credible force. So any flat earthers that are watching right now, if you're quite new to it, the main things that the ball earthers cannot prove, they can't prove axial rotation, they can't prove gravity, they can't prove curvature of the earth, which is where Soundly come into it, and now they can't prove parallax because Soundly's fucked it all up. So they've got three main arguments: curve, axial rotation, gravity, and they're the three that I always hang on. And I'll challenge anybody, and I can take anybody on with them, and I can generally do pretty well because they can't prove it. Now the problem with Soundly is they've come up showing this curved water thing because they've got this control, and they've gone into the water with these pylons that don't appear everywhere across the earth. I mean, I think it's pretty much the only one.
I think it is. I think it is the only one, isn't it?
I think so. I've not seen anywhere. I mean, I don't know any other claims where there's pylons that go over water of significant difference. And Soundly's found it. And I'm like, on the one hand, let's be honest, if it was a ball, then they would naturally do it. But equally, if it was flat and someone spotted that that's how to prove it, then that's what we need to do. But we haven't had any flat earthers go over yet there with the P900 to validate Soundly's claim. It's not been validated yet. Now, I did find a video that had been done about 3 months before Soundly that showed that they were completely flat. But the guy that did the video said words to the effect of, I've been waiting for this day, indicating that on other days you don't see the curve, on other days you see it flat, other days you see it curved. And I think he literally meant that the weather wasn't good enough. But it's been interpreted to mean that he's been cherry picking, and therefore it's been discredited straight away, which I find crazy. But this guy,
just to be clear, so there's a guy who made a video 3 months prior, and his depiction shows what? No curvature. What does his show?
Nothing. It shows nothing at all. I'll get you the guy's name so that you can have a check out. You can check it out on his channel. His name is Johnny Oops. It's JONNY.
I mean, if you want to play his video again, I'm not being flippant when I say under fair use. Absolutely, we are critiquing this stuff. This is pretty important. So I'm not fussed about playing his video.
All right. So if I share my screen, if you let me know when you present to everyone, I can flick it off so that the link doesn't get shared. Right. I'm ready when you are.
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy's called. I'm sorry, I've forgotten what his name was, but he did this video about 3 months before Soundly. So in the context of the bigger picture, the question you've got to ask is, well, has Soundly responded to this, or has Soundly done this independently? Now, this guy shows, well, he's got two main videos, Pontchartrain. Now, this one was criticized for showing curve, but I'm not sure that it's showing curve. I think if you get a straight line on that, it will appear to be straight, but it's misty on this particular day. And when you have
just in your mouse move, when you say curve, are you talking across left to right on the horizon?
On the z-axis, going from your eye line out to the horizon.
Fine.
He was criticized on this one. Some people said, yeah, you've shown curve. And this is one of his videos that he did. So he zooms right in, but I mean, it may be curve. It may not be curve. It's probably atmospheric. But I mean, you interpret that any way you wish. But to be honest, I accidentally showed that one. I shouldn't really have showed that one because this wasn't what I was basing my observations on. I was basing it on this one, which is exactly the position that Soundly's got, but he's on the other side of the pylons. Now, you can see this yourself. It's flat as a pancake. And not only is it flat, you can see the other side of the lake. That little white dot is some kind of building. And as he zooms in, he does what Soundly does. And I don't know if he's using a P900 or not. I have asked him. He's not answered me yet. And I've asked him, would he be prepared to repeat this experiment? Because I want to know what camera did he use. And I want to know if you can do it again. But obviously, from a flat earther's point of view, you've got Soundly showing this curve that looks like a basketball. But you've also got this guy 3 months earlier. I mean, there's no curve there whatsoever. So which one's right? You've got Soundly saying it's a basketball. You've got this guy showing that there's no curve there whatsoever. But he's also got another video that indicates that there may be a little bit of curve, but there's definitely atmospheric going on, blocking what we can see because we can't even see the shore. So what's going on? From a neutral position, a totally unbiased position, which one can you honestly say that you accept any of the three evidences that you've just seen?
I was going to say no, probably not. You'd have to verify it.
Yeah. So you have to verify Soundly's claim. Now, it appears that Soundly's claim of curvature has not been verified yet. I may be wrong, but it appears that Soundly's not had anybody flat Earth, like on the flat Earth side, going to verify it, which I'm surprised, because really it'd be the first thing that if I had a P900 and I lived anywhere near Pontchartrain, I'd be straight out there to see whether this is true. Because to be fair, if it is a ball and there are pylons that are a control, Soundly's claim should verify up. But nobody seems to have done it. And if they have done it, I'm just not aware of it. But I have been looking and I've not found anybody that has done it. But 3 months before, oh shit, I've just knocked it off, but it doesn't matter.
It's all right. I think we've seen enough, to be honest. So
yeah, 3 months before Soundly did his, we've got a guy that's showing that there is no curve. So the question then is, well, did Soundly respond to that, or is Soundly acting on his own accord independently? So his claim's yet to be verified as curve. And in any event, Nummy and I decided that we were going to challenge it and see if we could just see what would happen. But when we were going through it, we realized that there were anomalies. And I'd point you all to the hangout that we did last night. But essentially, there was a cyclist, a bloke pushing a cycle, and he just magically appeared from nowhere. He wasn't even in the picture. And the explanation was, well, it was a bandwidth issue. Well, if you look at the image, you go from a blocky image that does support like a bandwidth issue, but then you see this push cycle that is in crystal clarity, it's HD quality, and he just appears out of nowhere.
Sorry, push cycles and bandwidth, these things have a vague meaning to me. Can you give it a bit more description than... What do you mean by bandwidth?
I kind of have to show it you, but you'd lose it in YouTube because it's bad enough quality in the first place. But he's recorded... Basically, he's showing a scene, and the scene's in poor quality. It's like 1990s style webcam. It's very low resolution, and he said that that's bandwidth, and I'm quite happy to accept that that is bandwidth, maybe. But in that scene, there's a bloke apparently pushing a push cycle, and literally he appears out of nowhere. He's not there 1 minute, and then he morphs into this crystal clear HD version of a cyclist guy, and you're looking at it and you're thinking, where have you come from? You were not there a minute ago, and it looks like it's been put in there. Now, surely they wouldn't make that mistake. But that was just something we considered to be an anomaly. But it made us think, well, maybe we should look and see if there's any more anomalies. And there was another anomaly. We found a bloke walking from the right to the left, and we were looking at it thinking that does not look real. So from these two anomalies that we gave him the credit for, we looked at that and thought maybe there's more. So we realized that there was more, and we looked into it a little bit more. We found the parallax issue. And then once we'd done the chat, Island Von Vicious said, like, actually, there's a confirmation issue here with the pylons. He's got the legs like kind of like that, but on Google Maps it's like that. And he accepts the parallax issue, but also that the legs are in the wrong confirmation based on Google Maps. So either Google Maps is wrong or Soundly's wrong. So we were just like, oh my God, this has gone down pretty well. Now, obviously, three groups then went and responded, and they did debunks straight away, and they claimed victories, which is typical ball earther reaction. They claim victories based on whatever they consider to be correct. And I've watched Soundly's. Sly Sparkane's done one. Somebody else, I can't even remember who the other guy was, but I know there was at least three. Now, really, I want to see what Soundly's got to say. I'm not really interested in Sly Sparkane as much as I may like the guy in terms of his work. I think his videos are really good. I think he's full of shit, but I also think that his work's credible, and at least artistically. And whoever the other guy, I can't remember who the other guy was, but they'd all claimed debunking status straight away, and none of them have dealt with the parallax issue. It appears that the parallax issue has been forgotten about, and they've dealt with other aspects of it, which is like irrelevant, and it doesn't deal with the parallax point. But the whole point is that as Soundly's meant to be moving, we should see parallax. We just don't appear to see it.
When you addressed this a few days ago, you were looking at I wouldn't say crow's nest, but the nest that was in there.
Yeah.
Did that turn out to be a red herring, or what was that?
No, it appears, it's difficult to do this without showing it, and I can't be bothered sharing the screen again, but it appears that Soundly's used a flat photograph from 2015, and then based his evidence on the flat photograph to create the video footage from 2017, because the nest appears to not only be in situ, which is quite impressive for a nest anyway, because the laws of entropy mean that generally wind, rain, hail. They knock these nests to buggery, and they don't tend to survive that long. But if it did survive, the nest it basically looks exactly the same. The bits that are dangling off it are in the same position. The conformation the same 2 years on. Now that's not likely. I mean, yeah, I suppose it is technically possible, but entropy plays a role. Bits fall off it, they have to add new bits to it. It probably gets a bit bigger for a couple of extra chicks, but that nest shouldn't be the same, and it looks exactly the same in Soundly's video as it did in 2015. How likely is that from the point of view of entropy, going through all the seasons, all the winds? It isn't likely. Yet he's got the nest and it shows exactly the same as what it did on Google Earth in 2015. So we were like, how likely is that? And we concluded that it probably wasn't that likely. It is possible, but not likely. And we concluded that the nests were probably based on a flat image, that he's used a wireframe technique to interlace the background into based on previous photos, and the computer's put the rest together, and then he's produced a video based on that. And that does appear to be what he's done. Nummy did show how they can do it. He didn't show what Soundly's done, but he showed that there are techniques out there that use wireframe techniques to literally create a three-dimensional model based on a two-dimensional photo. And you only need 2 or 3 photos to put together, and the computer can work out the rest. And that does appear to be the case. I mean, one of the biggest pieces of evidence against Soundly
just before you move on, that's quite critical, though, because this is where, when you're saying we would have to make accusations of fraud, which is essentially the accusation you'd lay at his feet, Soundly, this is based on the way you've picked apart the evidence. You can only come to the conclusion that he's doctored this and gone to some effort to do so. You know, it's not a mistake, it's not unintentional, it's absolutely intentional.
And let me be clear, we should not do this as a run of the mill. And I did think twice about doing this. This wasn't something I took lightly. To accuse anybody of lying, I mean, the word lie means not only is whatever the subject matter is factually wrong, but you've got to prove that person was intentionally trying to deceive you. That is what a lie is. It's an intention to deceive other people, not just that it was wrong. So I didn't take this lightly. I didn't think I'm going to accuse him of being a fraud. I didn't do that lightly. It is against the mantra of everything that I believe to be true, because we should benefit everybody for generally being honest. But the reality is, I'm looking at evidence and I'm thinking, how can this be explained other than fraud? Now, I did go through with Nummy, and I was skeptical at first, and we went through it many times, and I really did think, should I do this? Because if I get this wrong, I'm fucked. Because you can't accuse somebody of fraud. It's probably the most serious of seriousness. And I wouldn't ordinarily do it, but I'm looking at the evidence and I'm thinking, what is the explanation for this? There really is no good qualified explanation to explain this away. Now, obviously, when we put the video out there and we got the response that we got, I mean, I did a parody video with Sean Hufford maybe a week ago, based on building bridges, because we shouldn't do shit like this. And I'm now blocked again. Sean's blocked me as a result of this, and it wasn't even about Sean. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. But yeah, I mean, this is serious. I mean, no flat earther really should make the accusation of fraud, lying, deceit without being able to prove that they intentionally tried to mislead people. And this is what we were looking at. And I was thinking, if I get this wrong, I'm dead. So, I mean, I was on my own here. Nummy was like, it's kind of up to you. But you look at the evidence and you think what you think. And I was looking at the evidence and I was thinking, how do we respond to this? And we decided that we were going to go with it because it does look like fraud. So time went by and we saw it was really bad. And we were thinking, there's no other explanation unless we're getting something really wrong. And that's why I spoke to you and I said, what do you think about the parallax? And the answer is, parallax has to be there, and it isn't there. So I was like, shit, maybe we're right. Maybe he has done this wrong. Maybe he has done this dodgily. And that does appear to be the case.
It raises a couple of questions, which is that, are you experiencing something at a base level that could be extrapolated out into the mass deception at large? I mean, I'm going to answer that straight away by saying I don't think so. And my reason for saying I don't think that's the case, this is just an individual case of somebody, I don't know, I'm not even going to try and put a reason on why this person has done this. But ultimately, I think you're correct. The guy has tried to perpetrate a deception. But I think at large, on the larger scale, when it comes to the globe lie, I think it's a system-based deception, and most people buy into the systems that are in place unquestioningly. I was discussing this earlier with my wife in terms of work-related systems, and in terms of employees, generally, because most seem reasonable, will have a blind obedience to the systems that are put in place. And the system that we have in terms of our cosmology is always going to be a global based system. Therefore, those systems will be adhered to by everybody, to the point, perhaps, gets my point, that people will even go to the extent of fabricating evidence to bolster their beliefs, which is all the globe is. So the guy who's perpetrated this deception has a firmly held belief. He has a religious belief in the globe, to the point that he's prepared to perpetrate fraud to defend that belief. That's what
I actually think got feedback for some reason. I actually think it goes beyond that. I don't actually think that Soundly's intention is to prove that to prove the globe. I think his intention is to see how stupid, gullible, and naive the ball earthers are, because not one of them has challenged him in terms. I mean, look at it. His evidence is. It looks like Walt Disney's created it. Now we all think that, but nobody's got the ability to articulate why it looks that way, because you can't say something looks fake because it looks fake. You've got to say
that falls into the category of duper's delight then. So what you're saying is he's literally putting it out there going, they'll buy anything, these ball earthers, as long as it confirms the ball. Is that literally what you're saying?
I think so. I think he's actually testing the ball earthers to see how naive they are. I don't actually think he's challenging the flat earthers because of its fraudulent nature. If he was trying to prove that it was a ball, I don't think he would actually deceive the way he's done, because I think he would just literally fudge the evidence, and he'd cherry pick. He'd pick the best angles, and he'd pick arguments that are debatable but don't really go one way or the other. And essentially, that we can't really prove definitely one way or the other that it is one or the other. On this occasion, what he's done is he's actually fudged the evidence to make it look like a ball, and it looks like Walt Disney. It looks like a cartoon, and I can't think for any reason why would he do that, because it goes beyond trying to prove that it's a ball. To me, the way I interpret it, he's seeing how naive and gullible the ball earthers actually are, and he's testing to. I actually think he's testing to see how stupid they are. Will they buy anything? If somebody comes out and says, "Look, here's evidence that we went to the moon," and it happens to be a cartoon like shuttle going to the moon, I've
got to put caution here, because at the moment you've reached a point where you've got to a beautiful conclusion with your parallax, but now you're bordering into sort of conspiratard with your conclusion of the motivation. The why, you just don't know. But you don't need to. It doesn't bolster your point anymore to know the whys and wherefores of why that particular deception's been perpetrated, beyond the point that it's been perpetrated, and you've proved that eloquently. So you kind of don't need to speculate about this. I mean, it's fun to talk about, but I don't know.
I agree. It's speculative.
Your camera's off, by the way. I don't know if you realised.
Oh, let me stick it back on.
Click it camera's on and off again. It'll probably come back on.
Oh, there we go. Are you seeing me now?
See you, beautiful, Anthony, beautiful.
Happy days. Well, I mean, the reality is, you are quite right. It is speculation as to why he's done it, but you have to go back to the evidence that he's presented, and the evidence is he's shown stuff that's lacking in parallax. He's passing it off as real, and that information that is missing is paramount. It has to be there. It's like the Antarctic 24-hour sun. They pass evidence off as 24-hour Antarctic sun and expect us to accept it, but when you look into it, it's missing like 4, 5, 6 hours worth of sunlight or moonlight, as it were, and they don't really think that we're going to notice it, and we do notice it. And there is no 24-hour continuous sun in Antarctica in the summer, which is where it's supposed to be. So when you've got Soundly producing evidence that he claims to be true, and there's no parallax present in the image that or the video, the footage, and don't forget he's quoted as saying, "This is really the only evidence that you need," and there's no parallax in it. I'm sorry, but that proves that you are fudging something in some way, and the reality is that is key evidence. So I mean, literally, we're waiting for. There's got to be ball earthers that live in the area. They need to go and replicate that experiment and see what happens, but. Yeah, I call Soundly a fraud because I do believe he's frauded the evidence. I think he's done something, a technique that I'm not familiar with, but he's forgot to parallax, and that parallax is what proved that he was literally lying. He was deceiving, and I don't know what his motives were, but he presented evidence as real that clearly is not real. So anybody that does still believe Soundly to be a credible source of information of the curvature of water, I'm really sorry, but Soundly is lying. He's presented evidence that's not true, and nobody's come back on it. I mean, there's been 3 debunked videos, and none of them have addressed it properly. Why are the pylons not subject to parallax? They should be.
Your camera's off again, by the way. But yeah, it's spot on. It's a nice feeling when it happened, and it was a nice moment with Arlen von Vicious. Is that how you say his name? Yeah, I think when he essentially had to concede. You know, he's got to concede that you're right. That was nice. I mean.
So, I mean, if you look in the video that I released today, it was a 30-minute video of Soundly destroying himself, and in that video, it showed that Arlen von Vicious was literally supporting me, and rightly so, because I was actually correct. It does appear that there's no parallax. Why? I don't know. That's up to Soundly to explain, but the parallax should be there, and it doesn't appear to be there. We appear to be having bandwidth problems. That's why it's gone off.
Oh, right. If it's just bandwidth, don't worry about it. Just leave it off. I won't put the globe up rather than just having me up.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, no, fascinating stuff. I like it when it's you've come back on several times at the moment because you're doing these experiments. And a second ago, you said about hopefully there's ball earthers that will go out and do this experiment, and I think we've got to kind of stop separating them. On Jaron's show, just got to get the channel name right. Yes, it was on Jaronism. On Jaronism's channel yesterday, they had IPS, Morgile, basically having at it, you know, discussing through their issues, more Morgile's issues with IPS than the other way around. But it was just a discussion, you know. But they're both flat earthers, so it was quite interesting because they're not loggerheads, but they've got, you know, Morgile's got concerns, and IPS is there, you know, in his own way to address those concerns. But they were just people, you know, very different people. And it's the same with I think we are starting as flat earthers to progress beyond this notion of globe heads versus flat heads, you know. And in that chat, in Jaronism's chat, there was a few people like Upside Down Ed Head and various other what currently get termed as flat earthers. And we were describing, I can't remember the words exactly, but the campfire that we all sit around. And, you know, Ed was the first to put his hand up and go, you know, I'm one of those people. I'm around this campfire. I'm very much here to stay. But he's what we currently define as a globe head. But I'm more for people looking at this subject, and let's kind of forget assessing where people are in terms of their beliefs. At the opening gambit with anybody is kind of, well, do you think it's flat? Do you still think you live on a spinning sphere flying through space? You know, and defining that for a lot of people, you know, my wife typifies this. She's completely agnostic. You know, she's completely open. She's analysing all of it. She's taking it all in, but she's not prepared to put a stamp down. And that was kind of something that, again, IPS had said to Morgile when he's like, well, you're not prepared to say for certain that it's flat. And yeah, I kind of have to agree, because there's going to be more people coming to this that are going, well, I want to have a look. I'm going to, you know, and that's much, much more encouraging, you know, the people like yourself, yes, you're on the flat earth side, that are prepared to take their P900s and go to the lake and go and have a look for themselves, you know, globe earther or whatever. Most people haven't got a clue what they're really living on until they're actually asked the question in the first place. You know, you ask the average guy in the street why he's living on a globe, and he probably doesn't have the slightest idea. You know, he doesn't contemplate it on a daily basis. You know, he just sees the globe spinning at the beginning of the Universal Pictures and doesn't give it a second thought. He just pays attention to the THX surround sound and the giant image and just goes, wow, cool, I'm in the cinema. But he's not thinking, am I actually on a flat plane, or is that image of the globe a complete farce? Those concepts aren't even in the mind of your general Joe. They're just not there. So when you confront them with this, they then have to suddenly decide whether or not they're a globe head or a flat head or whatever we, you know, on each side determine that the other should be smeared with. And it's kind of, we're just people, you know, we're just people. The bigger picture is that we've been lied to on huge swathes of different subjects, you know, where we've been told there's fact, there's speculation and theory. And that's what kind of I think we need to focus on more than people's
Well,
overall belief. And there's so many people like Ed, I'll give him lots of kudos in this show, that are here around the campfire looking at both sides of the argument, basically a bit sceptical. And when your world's been broke, like when Ed debated the Morgile 2 years ago now, his world, like everyone else's, had just been smashed to pieces. So you're going to be combative, you're going to be paranoid, but to round this very long diatribe out, I think we're kind of moving beyond that now. We're kind of reaching the point where we are identifying each other's similarities and where we can be in agreement rather than rowing and finding only disagreements. There are certainly examples of people who disagree. That will continue indefinitely. There's going to be blazing rows about this subject because it's charged. But I do think I have definitely seen progress where people are making strides, to form unions with people that on this one subject they are in staunch disagreement, but on a lot of other subjects they like each other. I'll give it an example. So we've got They Lie Ohio and Flat Earth Vancouver BC, who are, I've seen them both make videos about each other in total hatred. They get chatting about motorbikes. Next thing you know, they're best buds. Amazing. Not really.
Well,
they're just people.
This is where Gem Panda comes into it, because he's just come into chat, and I'm kind of gutted that he's in chat right now because I didn't want him to be here to hear this. But Gem's one of those few people that he goes from one side to the other and then back again. He's an absolute ball earther. He really is. Some people don't like him because he is a troll by nature, and we all kind of know that that's true. But on the other hand, Gem's actually one of the few people that I can talk to, and I don't feel as though he's fueled with hatred. We disagree, but he can disagree properly. Whereas how many ball earthers can actually do that? Not many can actually do that. So, I mean, shout outs to Gem in chat right now. Gem can actually chat. I mean, he hasn't spoke to me for 2 days at the minute for obvious reasons. He's still coming down from the hatred that was there at the end of the chat last night. But Gem is one of the few people that can do it, and that he's the go-between that allows us to be able to speak. Tim Osman is the same. I mean, Tim hates me at the minute because he thinks I've blocked him, and I've now unblocked him. He was blocked, and I didn't do it. Tim thinks I blocked him, and he said that he's not prepared to speak to me again, which kind of makes me like immune from being trolled too much, I suppose. But Tim's another one that can talk about it. So the reality is, like, these two guys, PMARS to some extent, although PMARS doesn't really have the integrity to be able to be impartial. But I mean, we all know that Tim and Gem don't agree with us, but Gem's not hated by everybody because of his views. I mean, Isa likes him. I like him. There are people that don't mind Gem. I don't even mind Tim. But on the other hand, these are the people that are going to come into become important when it comes to the point. Well, we're getting to the point now where the evidence really is lacking, and we really need to see, can we actually work with these guys to see what is going on, because there is no curve. There is no axial rotation. There is no gravity. And I keep saying it because it's true. Nobody has produced anything that makes me persuaded in one way or the other. In the absence of evidence to the contrary, you have to start with, it appears to be flat. It really is that simple. Where is the curve? Where's the axial rotation? Where's the gravity? Okay, there are going to be people that come up with explanations, but where's the proof? And there really is no proof. So essentially, I do think that Tim Osman and Gem Panda are going to become important people, not because they hate us or because they're against us, but because they're the go-between that allows the bridge to be crossed between the two. I like Tim. I don't have a problem with Tim. He hates me at the moment, and I like Gem. He probably hates me too at the moment, but in a couple of days it'll be settled back down again, and we'll be talking about stuff that's not flat Earth. But
I don't know if Gem would hate you over this. It's not anti moon landing. That reminds me, actually, did you get to watch his full documentary now?
Yeah, and you kind of catch me with, I mean, you know my views on it. We didn't go to the moon, but on the other hand, you have to give credit for Tim. What? You have to give credit for Tim, because Tim criticizes the ball earthers so much. If we were to apply Tim's critique against Gem, then it would be a hate-fueled fest of moon landing bullshit. And Gem really believes it. And you have to actually credit the guy with the belief that he has based on the evidence that he accepts that we did go to the moon. I don't agree with him, and that's fine, but he believes it. And if he believes it, that's the way it is. Where have you gone, Nathan? I guess he said 1 minute. Gem Panda, Anthony Riley, when you apologize to Soundly, we will speak again. Do you know what, Gem? I don't mind not speaking to you for the moment because I think you'll melt before I do. Soundly's a fucking fraud, mate. I like you, Gem. I have time for you, and I will put you ahead of other people. But if you do side with Soundly based on the evidence that you've seen, the guy's presented evidence that is fake. It is false. So I don't mind if we don't speak again because that just shows that you're the one that's burdened yourself. But if that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes because Soundly is not a credible source. There is no curve of the earth. There is no curved water. So unfortunately, if I'm an idiot, so be it. But where's the parallax, Gem? Be honest with yourself, Gem. Where is the parallax? Come on. That parallax has got to be there and it has to cross. It can't not cross. I've shown that the angle is nothing to do with it. It's to do with what's close to you. Well, Gem, you believe we went to the moon.
Yeah, I'm glad I left you to your own devices with the chat because you've got people like Gem in there, and Gem has ultimately, Gem's Panda, Jeremy, has got a life outside of this, and I think he just sees this as entertainment. You know, he's got a job, he's got a life beyond YouTube.
Let me just address this because he's put in chat there. I showed Parallax last night. Gem, you did show that there was movement of maybe what 10 or 12 pixels. I'll give you 15 pixels of movement. But the parallax that you need to show is that they need to cross. And I showed that it has to cross. I showed it in the video, the 30-minute video I released earlier on today, that it has to cross because he's far enough away and you don't need a lot of movement for parallax to work. It has to be there. So yeah, I'll give you that you gave it a couple of pixels of parallax, but it didn't do parallax the way that parallax needs to be done in that video. So yeah, you may consider it to be parallax, but to me, that's proof of fraud. So yeah, we disagree. But if you want to terminate friendship based on that, okay, it is what it is.
That's just bravado. So for the people who are watching this, perhaps on the re-upload, we've got Gem Panda in the chat who's essentially disagreeing based on parallax because of the pixel density at a certain zoom. Is that correct?
Well, what it is, it starts on one side of the picture, and let's just say for argument's sake, it's got 20 pixels. By the time it gets over to the other side of the picture, it's got about 12. And I'll give him that. I mean, to be honest, Nummy Num didn't want to give him the 12 pixels, but I said, we'll give you the 12 pixels or whatever it is. But the reality is that it has to cross, Gem. You can't get past it because it's the closest thing to you. So if you don't agree with me, Gem, it's fine. If you want to fall out with me over it, okay. But it's your burden you're carrying because I'm not burdened. I'm not the one with the dodgy evidence. So parallax, where's the parallax, Gem? I tell you what, Gem, what I'll do is I'll give you the opportunity to show in a video why the parallax issue is wrong because nobody else has done it. Sean's not done it. Slice Barcane's not done it. Soundly himself hasn't done it. My 30-minute video today upload shows it. So if you can show that I'm wrong in some way, Gem, be my guest, show it, and I will gladly apologize. I'll remove the videos and I will be his demon for the rest of eternity. But if you can't show why them pylons don't show parallax when they should do, if you can't prove that science is wrong, I'm sorry, Gem, but it is what it is, man. You're accepting
I've put it the chat so that the audience at home can make some sense of how you debate with the chat. But yeah, we might as well do some shout outs. So shout out to XStranger XX. How you doing? YouTube. John Watson, good to see you. Gem Panda, of course. Gem Panda the Ultimate. Good to have you here. Mark Taylor, Mr. B. Don't spam, my friend. Who else we got in here? Curved Water, pleased to see you. Full of it. Nice to have you in our chat. Project ELI, former guest from the last show. Good to have you here. Thank you very much for being here. RD, Alex Aquarius, is it? Time Q.
Yeah, I was going to say Time Q needs a mention. She always mentions me when I'm in. Project ELI, she always mentions me, and I do actually love Project. She's cool.
I was going to say you're a big fan of Project ELI, aren't you? So extra special shout out.
She's got this blood thing going on, and I'm not this rhesus negative. I'm an O positive, I believe. But she's now actually got me questioning it. So I've not donated blood for a few years, and I'm now kind of interested to see actually what am I, because I believe I'm an O positive, but it's been a few years, so I'm actually interested in seeing what I actually am. Big shout outs to Zachary Zabala, or Good Times for All, if you prefer. Just quoted him on the beginning of his all.
Yeah, Zachary Sabala. Yeah, good. Is he in the chat as well? Highwayman, good to see you. Good to have
Martin
you
Liedtke. Do you know what? I've not actually spoke with Martin. That needs to happen because you're an interesting kind of guy. Who else can I see?
When you do talk with Martin, talk maps, because when it comes to maps, Martin leaves me breathless when he talks about maps. He knows so much about them. I mean, I'm quick to, talk to Vice and say I don't believe in any of them, but there's still a lot of information held within maps, and Martin's got his fingers right on the pulse of that. I know he's been doing a lot of stuff on sort of current false flags and other things of that nature, photography. Did you watch his History of Photography series? That was fascinating. He's questioning the validity of the age that they present us with in terms of the timeline for photography. Truly fascinating. Martin's really upped his game recently.
Well, to be honest, the last 2 months I've been concentrating on Mick West, because Mick West really is he's the one that I really want to deal with. I ended up on Soundly because I had a bit of a lull in the Mick West thing. It seems to have ground to a halt. So Soundly got a gap there. But I mean, I would say it to anybody, and I'm not being an arrogant prick when I say this. I'm being it genuinely and sincerely. If I've got Parallax wrong on the videos from Soundly, somebody show me why it's wrong. And I don't want an explanation. I don't want maths. I want a real world demonstration showing why it's wrong, because I've shown that. Like I say, my video today shows that it should be there. So if somebody thinks that I'm wrong, particularly you, Jem, if you think I'm wrong, please do a video, show me where it's wrong, show me how it's wrong. And I know you said that Soundly's done it, but he hasn't. I've seen it, and it doesn't explain it. The things in the foreground do move faster than things in the background. So, yeah, but Martin Liedtke, I mean, we need to touch base because I've not spoke directly with Martin Liedtke before, and we need to. And let's see who else is there. To be honest, I'm going to give a shout out to Mark Taylor. He always hates me, and he's always around. So even though I don't encourage the hatred, Mark Taylor kind of deserves an honorary mention because he does literally hate me. Time Q Salador, she loves me, and I love Time. She's cool. Let's see. Good Times for All. I found some Harvard documents stating that geodetic surveyors take stellar measurements into account when calculating the curve. Do you know, I mean, Good Times for All is one of the best YouTubers right now. He is down to earth. He's approachable. He's really, really cool. If you've not subscribed to that Good Times for All, you need to go and view. Just go literally in the chat. Just go to his profile, click sub. So his videos he's doing right now are about how the angles of the light, when a light passes away from you and it gets further and further away, when it's very, very, very close proximity to you, it's big. But as it gets to a point where it's no longer in close proximity to you, and the size of the shine from the light stays the same, no matter how far away it gets, which is really interesting because it goes kind of against the idea that the sun must change its angular size if it's on a flat Earth, only if it's very, very, very close to us. So if you haven't joined, if you're not subbed to Zachary Zabala or Good Times for All, you really should do, because he's got some really cool experiments, particularly inside the warehouse with regards to the rising of the apparent horizon in the foreground on the box videos. Go and look at them; they're really good.
Yeah, I've just sent Martin Liedtke the link, so hopefully he'll join us and you can have a little chat with him. I'll introduce you as you've not spoken to him before.
Sure. Whereabouts is he based?
Martin, join us if you've got the link. It's on Skype, just so Martin knows.
Yeah, whereabouts is Martin based? I know he's England somewhere.
Oh, just some other country somewhere. Somewhere, not that important.
I'm curious because he's got a funny accent, you see. I don't recognise the accent.
He's from Cardiff.
Ah, now you said that, I should have spotted it, but yeah.
Yeah. He took us around his castle. He took us around the castle at Cardiff, and we got thrown out because we got to the gates, and as a citizen of Cardiff, he was declaring that he should have free and open access to the castle because it's his. It belongs to the citizens. But they were like, no, it's 20 quid to get in. It was like a full-blown row. Kicked us out. They're like, get out. He's like, right, I'm writing to my council, going to write to him. So I got the camera out and started filming his little rant. I'm sure. I think it was the Ski Ninja, or however you say, the Seeking Ninja, lifted that little bit and used it in one of his videos with Martin ranting about the people in Cardiff Castle telling him he can't come in.
I've just noticed Gem Pandas. I can't help it. He's just put gems in capitals, so he's shouting it. You've not proved a single one of your claims. It was nothing but a desperate, illogical, baseless conjecture. You are a fucking disgrace. Well, I kind of did show that the parallax should be there, Gem. Come on, show me that I'm wrong, or you're gonna have to pipe down and just literally just take it on the chin, man. Because unfortunately, it is there, man. The evidence doesn't support soundly. So if you think that you can prove otherwise, come on, show it. Do a video and show me where the parallax or how the parallax might not be there, because definitely looks like it should be there. Anyway, we're not going to mention Gem anymore because he's dominating the chat, and only because I love the guy. I do. Honestly, Gem, I've got lots of time for you. You know I have. We don't agree.
He's going to dream about a job. So he's obviously got work, and he's got a requirement for a certain task, and he was like, oh, I know you're a former salesman. Do you want to work for me? And I don't get me wrong, I was all keen. I mean, it didn't fit my criteria. I haven't actually told him the shit. I should really reply before declaring it live. But there we go.
Can I just go on the record and say that even though Jem disagrees with me, he's actually showed me where he lives on a map, so I kind of know where he lives. I could actually, if I really wanted to do the troll technique, I could track him down and become some kind of massive stalker. And I haven't
track him down and put a poo-filled bag on his doorstep and set it on fire.
Yeah, just put like send him a card that just says "I love you," and he'd be like, oh, "Shit." But no, I haven't done anything like that.
I've been trying to convince him to come to Meets for ages, and you know, I'm much more inclined to want to buy the guy a beer than put a flaming poo bag on his doorstep. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I would welcome Jem. I mean, we don't agree. But Jem is, like I say, Jem is one of the guys that you can disagree with, and generally, once the red rag has fell to the floor and the dust has settled, he'll end up laughing about this next week. I'm sure he will, and we'll be friends again. But at the minute, he hates me. He really hates me because.
We've been joined by Martin. How you doing? Martin Liedtke, Flat Earth British. Good to have you here.
Hey, nice one, Nathan. Hey, Anthony.
Whoa, man, your sound sounds
terrible connection. Are you uploading by any chance, Martin?
I know. No, my fuck. Everything's
clean
right now. It's me.
That's much better.
Maybe you should knock your video off.
I'll come back now. Give me a sec. I've been creaming.
Martin's working his way through technical difficulties. He's just ordered a filter for his line on the wall and various different things, and he's got himself some new headphones. But I say he's stepped up his game. He joins, and then immediately technical difficulties. Sod's law. That's what we call that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's always got a really poor quality image, Martin, for whatever reason. I'm guessing it's because he's out in the sticks. He's not in a proper country. He's in Wales.
He's right in the middle of a city. He should have perfect connection. He's got a new internet connection. Should be wonderful, but it isn't. But there we go. I mean, I say that I've been fiddling with my camera settings this whole time. I hope it's better. I'll probably look back and go, Jesus, it was better when I had it like this.
You actually look really good. You do look sharp today.
One of them, you do it. You just set it, and then you kind of think that'll be fine, and then obviously the lighting state changes. I mean, I used to make tech videos probably 12 months ago about setting stuff up for making flat earth videos. You know, I sent a couple to Martin, or had Martin in mind when I made them. Let's check how you're doing, Martin.
1, 2. Am I coming through okay now?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
much better. Excellent.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you've not been introduced to Martin, so Martin Liedtke, Anthony Riley, Martin Liedtke.
We have been in one hangout with you, Nathan. Only once.
Oh, have you?
Martin, let me ask Martin, what do you think about the parallax point I made on the pylons?
Well, I think that the way things are looking from the way things are progressing in the movement at the moment, I think it's down to human perspective. I think it's subjective, our vision. I think this is what needs to be understood. I think what science has done is sort of bent it and obscured the reality of what we're seeing and just piled on a weight of lies. What I believe is happening because of this apparent sunrise or sunset, I'm sorry, that rests upon your feet, that everyone keeps bringing up. When you think about this and you think, well, if you're 50 miles or 100 miles down the beach and it still meets at your toes, how is this possible? Obviously, it's not 93 million miles away. We know that. but I mean, how is this possible that the rays are meeting at everybody's feet, no matter where they are on the coast? Now, that tells me that the sun is subjective experience. That tells me it's down to the conscious observer. That's why the sunset or the sunrise looks so beautiful and looks ever so much more beautiful the more you stare at it. I believe that this is reacting to human consciousness and stimuli. I really do. And I think this is what's going on. I'm starting to think apparent sun. I'm starting to think that's not really there anymore. And so I'm starting to think that it might be a magnified reflection of something else there. I'm thinking all sorts, Anthony, at the moment. I'm sort of freelancing. But did you see Mick West in the paper? I wanted to ask you.
In the paper?
Daily Express. Yeah, he was in the Daily Express yesterday. I put it on my channel. Yeah, now listen to this. Now, Mick West, a moderator on his channel called Trailblazer, said that he had hard evidence that conspiracy theorists have been falsifying NASA images. One in specific, you know the famous image of when in the stairs and you can see the Earth in the background, but you can see that it's been copy and pasted and there's a square around it. Everyone have seen that, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's saying that this image, he's got the original from NASA, and there's not anything showing at all. He's saying that's hard-coded to NASA. He's saying the later image with the copy and pasted is not an official NASA image, and it's been added. Well, I'm trying to go through something like 5,000 NASA images to try and pinpoint that exact image to see if he's. I got the official images, so really intriguing, and it made the Daily Express. They know. Quite a big article. Mick West, you know, he was in it as well. So Metabunk put it out. So they're saying that we're falsifying, or not us specifically, but conspiracy theorists are.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Rob Skiba that did that. So if he's accusing Rob of this is a role reversal. This I wasn't expecting at all for this particular show. So effectively, he's saying that Rob is guilty of fraud because it was Rob Skiba that originally did that. He just took a.
I didn't want to say that on here, but yes.
Right.
I didn't want to say that.
So that's escalated things for Mick West, though. I mean, he's now accusing a devout Christian of fraud.
Let's get this straight. Mick West is accusing effectively Rob Skiba of fraud, right?
He doesn't state his name, but I knew that, but I didn't want to put it out into the ether. But yes.
So he's now got to prove that Rob Skiba was dishonestly misleading people with the intention to deceive.
Yes, and we got to find the original coding for the original picture, which is I'm trying to go through to find. I may have it. I really do need to look. That can prove it one way or the other. If you can find the original NASA coded image and there's no planet, then it's been falsified. But this is what this Trailblazer is putting out there, and it's made the Express. Which alarm bells start ringing there. Metabunk, Daily Express.
Yeah.
It's just solidifying their bullshit. It really is.
Well, what I need to do, I need to get back with IPS and find out where we're at with Mick West, because the last thing I heard from Mick West was that he challenged me to give him written questions in advance for the Hangout. Now, if I do that, that gives him time to go and find the rebuttals to make it logical, plausible, reasonable, credible on face value. And I really don't want to do that because I want the guy cornered, because I want to say to you, look, you are deceiving. There's the evidence, and you are a fraud. Now, again, I don't really want to do that because I've just done it with Soundly, but ultimately the guy is lying. He is telling mistruths. He's basically
you've seen him on Joe Rogan. You know what he's about. The guy, he was just doing his dupers, and he just basically confessed on air, as far as I'm concerned. But other news, anybody seen David Wilcock mention Flat Earth? He was on Wakey Wakey's channel. Nathan, did you see this?
Yes, I did. I did see the thumbnail go up. I didn't actually watch Wakey Wakey's video. It just came out this morning.
No. Well, I've been waiting for this. I actually predicted way over a year ago that if it went mainstream, that David Wilcock or his gang will maybe the ones that'll come out with it first. And then it was Tellinger, Michael Tellinger, who's in that sort of elk with them in that conspiracy field. And he's connected with Gaia TV as well. And then they interviewed him, and he's taken all this time to find out and jump on the bandwagon, and all this stuff he was coming out with, none of it he'd not done any research whatsoever, and basically pasted the flat Earth, saying that it was ludicrous. It was a government-introduced NSA psyop. He didn't have any information or any evidence to the contrary. He was just chucking it out there like he'd been told what to say. It was really, really not good, especially from a man of his field and the amount of, he's only got about 100,000 subs. He hasn't got as many as, say, our Eric. So that's good. But, he's a movie director and the rest thinks he's a reincarnation of Edgar Casey. Not going to backtrack on his work. That's what that's about. Same as Ike. He's like little Ike, isn't he? Little David Ike. So, but that whole field of people, you can't be trusted. The Rupert Sheldrake's, the David Greer, about his background, surely, or Lawrence Krauss. Well, he's a Freemason anyway. David Greer has been set up. He had his doctorate paid for him by them as well. If you look into his life, he's really interlaced with the whole structure of academia is David Greer, and so is Lawrence Krauss, and they're all connected, and are connected to Neil deGrasse Tyson as well. They're all interlaced, these people. They're like the mainstream people who are going to carry this whatever agenda, alien agenda, whatever they're going for. The pushing of the global warming now with this bullshit with Antarctica crack. Well, have you seen that on my channel? Antarctica crack. A size of the South Wales is going to fall into the Southern Ocean, but there's no word of any tsunami. Yet there's an island in the Canaries, in Gran Canaria. They reckon if a bit falls off that, it will cause a tsunami big enough to take out the east coast of America. Yet this thing, it's tenfold. It's absolutely huge, and it's going to plop into the sea any moment. But no worry about tsunamis, and they're just trying to say that it's global warming that's causing this crack. And I picked that apart. I don't even think they're there. None of it's real. None of it. So this is the news of the week by Flat Earth British.
Loads happening. I did pick up on that video about the whatever you'd call it, iceberg giant. Why is it always the size of Wales?
They always use Wales as a narrative. Wales or Kent? I don't know.
Well, listen, I need to interrupt a second because I've got Project DLI trolling me on Skype. She wants me to blow her a kiss. So, Project, that's for you. I've done it for you. There you go. She's literally trolling me on Skype. She's saying, blow me a kiss, I dare you. So I've done it. Sorry, go on. God. I suppose it's because we're English that they use Wales. I suppose if you live in Australia, for example, they would refer it to New Zealand. Oh, by the way, speaking of New Zealand, let me just share this story with you. Dazza the cameraman, you've all heard of him, right? He
sure.
He had a conversation with me that was recorded without my authority on a Skype call. And then he used it and uploaded it against me. And in that conversation, I made concessions that I wouldn't have gave if I knew that I was being recorded. Now let me put it clear. I did give him consent to do the recording at some point. I just didn't give him consent to do it at that point, because at the exact moment that we were discussing it, I was on about something else. And he was buddying up to me to making it sound like I was all friendly, that he was all friendly with me, and he really wasn't. And he recorded it, he uploaded a video, called me out on it on something, but did it without my consent. And I reported it for privacy reasons, because he didn't tell me that he was recording, and he should have done, because I wouldn't have gave concessions. Anyway, YouTube pulled the video down. Dazza, he's not said a word to me since. No apology, no buddying up. He gave a massive wide berth. So although Dazza the cameraman does come across as a gentle, kind of meek, mild-natured kind of guy, he's not actually a nice person, really. He presents himself as nice, but no apology was made for invading my privacy when you recorded your video, and you got what you deserved, Dazza. So if you're watching, and I know you're probably not, but if you are watching, you kind of deserved it, mate. Sorry, but you did.
Fair enough. I've not had any interactions with Dazza the cameraman other than seeing him on, is it Earth Discussions?
Oh, I don't know.
That's where I know him from.
Yeah, that's the only place I've seen him, but certainly had no interactions with him that I'm aware of.
So,
yeah, good stuff. I don't know if I'm going to get another guest on. I've just sent out the link to Lucifer Tim. Do you guys know Lucifer Tim? He's been making lots of music. I
see his video. It was quite something, wasn't it?
Well, I'm going to play it if I can find it.
When he was going back and forth with the music in the chair, like a partial insanity, and then on the beach, I thought the whole thing was the whole concept was so well put together and clever. It really was. And if the music's is as well, which I'm not sure if it is, wow.
Might see if I can get him. Let's see if I can get him. I'm just going to call him on Skype.
Whilst he's answering,
sorry,
Captain Bullshit. I may have baby teeth, but I'm also gender fluid as well.
Captain Bullshit. I got no fucking teeth.
I can change sex with a flip of a coin. I mean, 1 minute I'm male, next minute I'm female. I actually my partner is a gnome.
Okay. I'm not paying attention to this conversation. I've just heard my partner is a gnome. I've just pricked my ears up to that because I wasn't paying enough attention. What was that? Sorry.
I was just getting trolled by Captain Bullshit. He was asking if I still had baby teeth, and I was like, "Yeah, of course I got baby teeth. I'm also gender fluid, so I can change sex at any moment without warning." And my partner is a gnome. So if anybody's wondering if my partner's going through a
sorry, I've just covered you with Lucifer Tim. I do apologise. You guys up for watching this?
Sure.
Okay, you guys may not get this picture, but you'll certainly get the sound.
Because if you're not, well,
wow.
Awesome.
It's kind of like a train spotting video, that isn't it?
Yeah, it's
No.
Nora's No One's Flower actually was the one who directed that and put it together and produced it, but it's obviously Lucifer Tim's music. But he's just been churning them out recently, loads and loads and loads of songs, and yeah, I love all of them. Brilliant, share them all.
Yeah, it's quite
so good that.
It's very English looking almost, if there is such a category.
English looking music video.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty out
Tim
there
Rock
as a
says
character.
that.
He certainly is. He's recently defected to the Globe for some unknown reason. I don't know why. He's given me a loose explanation. It made no sense. But yeah, more power to him.
Well,
Whoever floats his boat.
Say again, Martin. All I
Whatever
heard
floats his
was
boat,
sirens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've probably rounded out our show with everything we needed to talk about. Was there anything you guys wanted to talk about before I do end this broadcast?
My art, there's a picture. I may have a place to live, so that's good as well.
Hold on, Martin. Let's have a look at your beautiful artwork. Can you hold it a bit closer? Hopefully the camera will focus on it. Oh, it's so fuzzy. That's a shame. But yeah, you've got some art supplies we saw from your vlog, and that's the end result. Wicked. Oh, I'm really pleased. Well done, Martin.
Yay. Try anything, me. Black Earthy, that is.
Of course, it's now old news. Your whatchamacallit, your display behind you, Anthony.
Yeah, it is, and I'm not planning on changing it for at least another year.
You love her album covers. It's really funky. I think it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was like I say, Nathan was the one. He said it looked shit, and I was like, "What's wrong with the door and a radiator?"
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just when you're debating someone like Mick West, it's always nice to have a nice set. You know, just it's like your armour, isn't it? It just gives you a bit of, you know, if you're sat with coffee cups around you. I had the exact same conversation with Martin 2 years ago, didn't I, Martin? And I was quite brutal with you. You know, I was like, come on, you got talcum powder behind you on one side, empty coffee cup on the other, sort it out.
Yeah, but if you go back to that conversation with Mick West, he actually had a pink handbag over the door handle. I don't know if you noticed it. But...
Better than smelly socks on knickers hanging up or something. I wouldn't be having that.
It was, but there was a pink handbag over the door handle. It's brilliant.
Oh, this has gone from Flat Earth to gossip now after that song. Why not? So for everyone watching in the re-upload, this is now deteriorated. It's gone massively downhill, and we're just going to gossip about people, like the kind of things, the crazy notions. But we had people sharing their screens. I mean, I know you have the issue of you had with Jamie yesterday. He did various different things that he didn't need to, like start the Hangout. So just to give this a little bit of an explanation of what we're talking about, what you're actually watching as an audience member is a Hangout that's not running. So I've just got it up just so I can share the link and we can have this conversation. I'd have to fiddle around with the cameras. It jumps around automatically. Easy peasy. What Jamie did yesterday was actually start the show on that particular show. So a lot of the audience were then going into that show that was running rather than the OBS stream. And when that got sniped, he lost his audience. But that aside, we've had people in Flat Earth sharing their screens and they've got like their shortcut to their pornography and things like that. It's like, what are you doing?
One guy did that. One guy.
There's been more than one, I can tell you that much. I know that for a fact.
Well, all I'm going to say is Mr. B in chat said that my backdrop still looks shit, and I don't think it looks shit. I think it looks fab.
You could do tipping your camera a little bit down, because at the moment we've mostly got a talking mouth, because I have the view slightly zoomed in so we don't get all of the frame of the Hangout. But unfortunately, it means we get a talking mouth.
Try and put it just below my phone.
Much better.
I must say, Nathan, your mic sounds sweet. Really warm sound to it.
See if Anthony Riley takes some credit for that.
Yeah, because I remember when I first met Nathan and he didn't know who I was, and I said, "Hey Nathan, you should speak into your Yeti properly." And he was like, "Yeah, thanks very much. Fuck off, bye." And then he must have come to my chat and he must have realized that I had the same Yeti, and he was like, "Shit, maybe he's talking some sense." Like, and that was how we got talking because of his microphone.
Yeah, I didn't care. You could hear me. It was one of them. When I plugged in this mic, it's a Yeti, Blue Yeti. And it was like a revelation. I didn't even want it. My wife just turned up with it and gave it to me because I was fiddling and faffing so much with microphones and just a faff. Whereas you plug this in, the USB mic, it just worked and you could hear me clearly. So at that point, I was like, happy with that. Don't care from this point on.
It is a brilliant sound as well. But what I'll do, let me just conclude this because I'll wrap this up for you so that it's a nice conclusion. I don't know how many flat earthers are in the chat right now that are quite new to it, but if you're only new to flat earth right now, the only three things that you need to know is that they can't prove curve, they can't prove axial rotation, and they cannot prove gravity. Now, we haven't had much of a debate over gravity at the moment. We've been dealing with curve, but they can't prove curve, gravity, or axial rotation. If you remember those three rules, you won't go that far wrong. Any evidence they give you, there's something wrong with it. You've just got to work out what, but you know that they can't prove any of them three. And that's what I did. I just applied that principle against Soundly. And then we all know that Soundly's evidence is bullshit in some way, but we weren't really sure what he was doing. So just remember those three rules if you're new to flat earth, because they're the three things that they can't prove. So on that note, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to go and relax with a rum and coke. And thanks very much, Nathan, for having me on. And Martin, we need to hook up sometime, but you do need a better webcam.
Definitely, Ant. Definitely, Ant. And anytime, just give me a call. I'm here, brother. Definitely.
Well, just send me if you send me a Skype message and just send me over how I can contact you, and then we'll sort something out. But you do definitely.
Yeah, okay, no worries.
Awesome.
And,
definitely.
Well,
Thank
that
you.
just leaves me to say a massive thank you to Anthony Riley. Thank you very much, first and foremost, for coming back on and telling us all about Parallax.
Yeah, no worries. And Jem, I do love you, man. You're a good one. See you soon, guys.
Pleasure. And also Martin Liedtke, thank you very much for being here. It's
Yeah,
been a pleasure.
Always. Thank you, Nathan, brother. And hopefully, maybe Jem will come Saturday. You never know. See him there. And I look forward to seeing you, obviously, Nathan, and the family and everybody else.
Yeah, I should really give that a plug, shouldn't I? Right at the end. So for everybody who doesn't know already, we're having a Flat Earth meetup this coming Saturday, the 22nd, which is in Leamington Spa, Warwickshire, at Jefferson Gardens, which is in the centre of town at midday. So be here or be sphere. I've been Nathan Oakley. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe and comment below. I'll see you all in the next video.